Welcome to the Rise Up For You podcast, where thought leaders, entrepreneurs, and executives from around the world share their practical tips, strategies, and stories to help you unleash your potential and achieve your goals. Your journey of growth to become your best starts now.
Hey everyone, welcome to today's podcast episode. Before we jump in, Nagham Nasruddin here. I wanted to let you know that, hey, when you're not listening to the podcast, when you're not watching the YouTube video, check us out on LinkedIn. We are constantly posting, adding value on LinkedIn, my team and I. We have a Rise Up For You page and has videos, articles, content. It's actually our favorite platform. So if you want to connect with us on a day-to-day basis and you want to get additional content and resources, head over to LinkedIn. Follow me, connect with our team, connect with Rise Up For You, and we're happy to share any content. And even send us a message because we'll reply. We're not a bunch of bots. So I'll see you there. And for now, let's jump into today's episode. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Rise Up For You podcast. This is your host, Nagham Nasruddin, and I'm super excited to not only launch our new podcast season, but also our new series, Let's Coach. So every Friday, we're going to be bringing you a new series on our podcast where we're actually going to be inviting our coaches, yes, the Rise Up For You team of coaches, onto the show. And we're going to be answering questions from our audience completely live. So we don't know what the questions are. We don't know what the coaching challenges are. And Nagham and I today are going to be answering some of those questions. So before we jump in, let me just set it up a little bit more. If you're new to our audience, Rise Up For You is all about supporting leaders, professionals, and organizations around the world by teaching all the skills that you typically don't get taught, but the ones that make up about 1% of the population's success. So that's mastering your mindset, emotional and social intelligence, leadership, how to influence and make an impact, self-confidence, which is a huge one. So you will notice that on this series, Let's Coach series with Rise Up For You, most of the questions that we're going to get asked, you're probably going to resonate with, but it's things that you've probably never been taught. Like, how do you stand up in front of a room and influence and make an impact? How do you break imposter syndrome? So I'm super excited for this series because it's definitely a need. Our community's been asking for it. And also you get to see other amazing team members from Rise Up For You. And I have to be honest, if you are a business owner, you might be able to resonate with this. 2-3 years ago, I thought there is no way I can have other coaches that can coach like me. They're not going to be able to make an impact with the clients. And that was my ego. If you run a business, you can probably relate. And I'm so happy to say that, a few years later, we have just an amazing team that, I'm not going to lie, half the clients don't even know who I am. And I love that. So this is a great opportunity for you to meet some of our team members. They're amazing at what they do. Today, we have actually the longest team member with Rise Up For You, which I'm so honored to have. She's a master coach with us. She has multiple degrees in soft skills and communication. She's a storyteller. She has done it all, everything from corporate to nonprofit. And not only that, just as a human, super loyal. When I first started the business and I had $0, no money, she helped out in the community build the brand. She showed up. She did it for free. And I'm just so grateful to have her. So please, in your car, wherever you're watching this on YouTube, if you're listening to the podcast, let's give a round of applause for Nagham Wehbe. Yay!
Thank you.
You didn't expect that, did you?
No. I was like, whoa, she went there.
I'm really excited to have you. Before we jump in, and again, just for the audience, if you're watching this on YouTube or listening, I'm literally just going to open up our app with, coaching questions, and I'm going to pull as many as we can get through today in this episode, maybe 2 or 3. But is there anything that you want to share with your audience just about your journey, how you got to where you are, anything at all? Tell us anything that maybe I didn't mention, because it is the first time that the community is meeting you. I know you're going to be on this multiple times. Our coaches will keep coming back, but just anything want to jump in and say?
No, the only thing I wanted to add is that my mindset or my come from as a coach is that I don't have the right answers. And that's where I got here, because I've always had a growth mindset, whether working Netta here with Rise Up For You, or even in my different jobs or different educational experiences that I've taken. And I'm a true believer that as a coach, it's not about giving the right answer. It's about brainstorming together and seeing what strategies are out there, but that every person needs to really decide for themselves what's best for them and what works best for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I really love about coaching, because it's a combination of empowerment, education, reflection, active listening, but also strategy. Like, that's the main thing for us here at Rise Up For You, is making sure that whoever's getting coached also has tangible strategy that they can move forward with. But you're right. It's all about exploring, finding those answers for yourself, because everybody has a different definition of what success is, what they're looking for in their life. So very well said. All right, Nagham, are you ready? You ready? Yeah. Okay, let's jump in. All right. And again, if you're listening, I'm pretty confident that there's at least one today that you're going to hear and say, oh yeah, I want to know that too, or I'm struggling with that. Okay. So as you can see here on YouTube, we don't know what's being asked. I'm literally going to click here into our app. Okay, here it is. Okay. So the challenge or the question from this individual, her name is Jen, is, I'm interested in growing in public speaking, but the challenge is, how and where do I start? So I want to be a public speaker or grow in my public speaking, but I don't know how to do it and I don't know where to start. So this is actually a very relevant question. I think especially in today's world, where a lot of people are starting to recognize the importance of influential communication. I think I like influential communication because public speaking, sometimes people get this impression that I have to be up in front of like 10,000 people, but public speaking is really standing up in front of a room of your team and leading a meeting, for example. So I'm going to throw it over to you. What are your suggestions in regards to, how do I get started? What do I do? I'll chime in as well. And by the way, for those of you that are new and maybe might not know Nagham, she has an extensive background in storytelling, specifically on stage, though, when it comes to public speaking. So I don't mean storytelling like writing books, but I mean understanding how to influence through communication on stage. She's done multiple playwrights, worked with a lot of influencers. So you're actually perfect for this question.
Yeah, I think the first step is finding opportunities to do it. It's funny because when we talk about dance or we talk about music or any other practice, it's natural that we think, yeah, like I practiced it since I was a kid and I went to rehearsal and I did all that stuff to become this master at this skill. But when we talk about public speaking, we don't think about it the same way, but it is the same. It's another skill. It's just putting yourself in places where you get to practice it, even if it's uncomfortable, and learning from that experience. You can read all you want about public speaking. You can intellectually get it, but if you don't put yourself out there, whether it's leading a meeting, whether it's hosting an event, whether it's just with 3-4 people, whether it's making a video and put it on social media and seeing the feedback. So just finding little windows for you to practice, and also seeing what opportunities are out there where you can apply, volunteer. There is a lot of even circles or educational gatherings where you can practice and get feedback until you feel you're making progress, and more opportunities will come. It's just not like there's no formula. It's just about practicing and finding opportunities yourself rather than waiting for somebody to give you permission. Just do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would add to that, I think it's really important. Well, we first have to kind of identify, are you wanting to be a public speaker that is out in the public on stage? Mm-hmm. You want to spread a certain message? Or are you looking to enhance your public speaking, like in the corporate world, for example, amongst your team and amongst like just your community professionally? And I think, honestly, they all pretty much have the same concepts, but here's what I can say, that's simple little things that can set you up for success now. The first thing is that as a public speaker, the external presence is a lot more important than you realize. Mm-hmm. And I think that a lot of people don't realize or recognize that. But when somebody's up in front, and I'm sure if you're listening or watching us on YouTube, you can connect with this. When you see somebody up in front that's leading, or that's doing a motivational talk, or they're speaking about a topic, you want to see success in that person. You want to be able to look at them and say, yeah, I can see that you've achieved that for yourself. And I believe it, right? And, sometimes we see this, and I'm not knocking people that are trying to be public speakers, because I think it's beautiful and we need more of you. Mm-hmm. But sometimes I do see people that will stand up that are struggling to survive, and they're like, I'm going to help you make $1 million. And you think, but are you really? Because you're not showing up that you can teach us how to make $1 million, right? So that external factor is going to be really critical. So some of those things is posture, having power poses. There's a great TED talk on power poses. The name of the individual is like slipping my mind right now, but we'll find it and drop it in the notes. There is a ton of research done on power poses and confidence and presence, and how that can elevate your communication influence. Colors, like as you can see, Nagham and I are wearing bright, solid colors, because that helps you stand out and it puts you in a position of authority. So as you can see, these are just some of like the external factors that you can jump into. But I would say it's really important to understand, if you're going to public speak, what your message is. And whether you're running a meeting or whether you are going out in front of an audience to share like your personal message or professional message, there's 3 things I want you to ask yourself. What is it that you're talking about? Why is it important to the audience? And now what should we do with the information? So it doesn't matter. So before you jump in, Nagham is absolutely right. You need to find opportunities, even if they're pro bono and you don't get paid. Like, it's not about the money right now. But I want you to set you up for success and understand, what is my message? Why should people care about this? Because if people don't care about your message, and this is true for leadership meetings as well, if the team doesn't understand what's happening in the meeting, they're going to check out, right? Which is why employee engagement is so low. And number 3 is, what should I do with this information right now? Okay, so the talk that you just gave, now what? Is there an action step I should take? Is there a call to action or something that I should click on? So I would say start reaching out, just like Nagham said, but ask yourself now, what's my message? Why is it important to people? And what do I want them to do when the message is done? Nagham, anything else to add?
Yeah, a few things also to add. It's case to case based on where you're speaking, given those 3 questions, knowing your audience. Who's your audience? You can't have the same message for everybody. You want to connect with your audience. So who is it? Is it your leadership team meeting, or is it your employees team, or is it I don't know, the ladies luncheon for a club in your town? So just knowing who your audience is and how to connect with them. And then the last thing, and you touched on it a little bit with the impression and the first impression, Neda, but also I think authenticity. And I know it's a trendy word that has been like a trend, but also practicing what you preach. And It comes also with emotional intelligence. So keep working on your emotional intelligence and your self-awareness. Are you saying something? How are you practicing it? And when you're not practicing it, what do you get to do so that people can see through? People can read through energy. People can see through. You can fool them maybe for a speech, but then later they'll know. It's about being self-aware that what I'm preaching is what I'm practicing, that I'm always growing, that I'm also aware of my triggers, how I show up, how I shut down, because that's going to all come up in when you're public speaking, and reading the room as well, because sometimes you get to pivot based on where the audience is at.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think it comes down to what you said earlier, which is you got to practice. I mean, just so everybody knows, and not to make this about me, but my first career, I was a performer. I stepped on stage in front of thousands of people singing. And when I first started speaking, even though I'm used to the stage and I'm used to the microphone, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm nervous. I got to practice. And even today, a lot of the content and the keynotes, I've done it thousands of times. I still practice. Mm-hmm. I still think, just like Nagham said, okay, who's my audience? I've done this talk before, but I haven't done it for these people. And they have a different energy and a different room and a different so on and so forth. So practice, practice, practice. Okay, I love
I have a last point before you move to the next question. Give yourself grace too, because sometimes you see the successful public speakers and you're just seeing the end result of years of practices and years of failures and years of their speech falling flat, maybe sometimes, and learning from that. But we see just the good, the success, especially with our social media. And we think this is what it is. And just give yourself grace. And it's okay to practice and learn and reflect. And as long as you're growing, that's what matters.
100%. I love that. All right. Should we go on to number 2? I feel like we could talk about public speaking forever. Like that's going to come up again. Okay. Let's go to number 2. So I'm just opening up our app here. Let's take a look at our next question. Okay. This question is from Wandi, and she says, okay, this is also pretty timely. I'm currently in between jobs. I've been interviewing, but I don't think my interview skills really show my leadership capabilities. What do I do? This is a good question. Today's questions are good. Okay, so I do think that most people can probably connect with this. If not now, maybe in the past, potentially in the future, in between jobs, not feeling that maybe their interview skills are up to par. They're not able to really demonstrate maybe their leadership capabilities or whatever specific capability they want to get across in a job interview. So let's jump in, Nagham. Let's coach. Anything that comes to mind right off the bat?
It's interesting because it can go in line with what we talked about public speaking. Is first understanding what is the job you're applying for, what's the job description, what is needed. So understanding your audience, the recruiter, what they're looking for, and then finding stories that complement or show the skills that you have that are required. It's not about telling every story and every success story. It's about really finding the juicy one, the one that's going to get the message across. And the other, that's for the content. And then the presence, being confident, how you're connecting also with the recruiter, your warmth. So all of that, just you can look at that. And even with our Rise Up For You courses, like you can look and you can actually rate yourself. Okay, from 1 to 10, where am I? How do I get to go to the next level? And seeing how that reflects in the interviews in a way.
Yeah, that's great. It's interesting. While you were talking, I was reflecting on a program that I'm going through right now that I think actually can help with this. So for those of you that maybe don't know, Rise Up For You is a certified woman-owned business. Okay, so, we've gone through all the paperwork. We've, been approved. We're super excited about it. But I'm in a program that can help capitalize on being a woman-owned business, right? So you become certified. Now what? What do you do with it? How do we get out there in bigger enterprises and bid on grants and so on and so forth? But there's something that we're doing, an activity that I think could be really helpful here, and it's called a capability statement. So it's a 1-page statement that we're creating as an organization that basically we can give to any corporation or potential enterprise client that says everything that we do on its highest level. So our top accomplishments, where we've been featured, our proven, track record. The section, though, that I think is really important that can apply here is the section that says proven performance, where we actually have to put like statistics and data that show, what like our results and our credibility. And I think that part of interviewing well is being able to self-promote. But it can be difficult to self-promote when you haven't written down, right? Or you haven't tracked your proven track record, what you have accomplished. So I would almost say, in line with the capability statement, create a little section in your notes, write this down, take a little bit of time to reflect. What is your proven track record, your success record as a leader or as a whatever it is that you're applying for job-wise, as a salesperson, whatever it is. And it doesn't have to be, I trained 10,000 people to It can simply be successfully led a team of 10 through a multi-million-dollar project, for example. Was rewarded for the last company that I worked through my hard work and mentorship with my team. Like there's different things that you can put that really will show your leadership capability and success. And then when you get into that interview, now it's actually saying it. And this is where the self-promotion comes from. So I really encourage you to practice. So for example, if somebody in the interview says, okay, tell me about your past, leadership capabilities and what you've done, you can say, thank you so much. Well, in the past, I've successfully led a team of 20 through A, B, C, and D. I've been able to help guide, 26 people in my previous job through debt. So now you have the language. I think one of the things, and, jump in anytime, Nagham, around interviewing is that we don't always prep And so we don't have the language in the moment. And that goes back to the public speaking question that we just had.
Yeah.
It's you gotta practice some of these things so that in the moment you're like, yes, I know exactly what I'm gonna say, and self-promote, because that self-promotion piece is critical in a job interview. Because if you don't know how to sell yourself, like,
yeah. And sometimes it can be even a small example, like here's a demonstration of my leadership capabilities in this challenge that the company was going through, and I led the efforts with the team. It doesn't have to be this one big thing, as you said. And another thing is, yeah, like prepping those stories and statistics so you're able to say that. But also, like any speech, like any podcast, like anything we do, is just thinking of it as if you are in the recruiter's shoes. What do you want to hear? Like, what are the impactful things that you want to share? It's not about, so I do interviews at my other job as a consultant with Arts Consulting Group. We do a lot of executive search as well, and sometimes the candidate can come and just dump all those information, and they have great stories and great statistics, but then the recruiter is not connecting with you because you're all over the place and going in circles and all that. So really, knowing your statistics, knowing your stories, practicing how to say it concisely in a way that connects with whoever is talking with you, and not a lot of details, but enough details to get the message across.
100%. I love that. And just to wrap up, which I think applies to both questions, do your best to remove filler words in your communication. Filler words being like, and if you're listening, you're probably laughing. I remember when I first started speaking and doing podcasts, I listened to my first podcast interview. I had 100 likes in there. I'm from California.
Yeah.
So we do, and we say like a lot. But I remember listening to my podcast and thinking, oh my gosh, I said like 100 times. It's a filler word, right? So that you can maybe think or give yourself a little bit of time and space, but do your best to try to remove that language because it makes you sound less confident. And remember that it's okay to have a little bit of space and pause when you're speaking, and when you're interviewing, it doesn't matter.
And also don't focus on it so much that you forget your message. This is another, it's the tip. It's like I just said, like, it's the cupcake, and that's the whipped cream and the sprinkles that make the cupcake better. So a lot of times people focus on that so much that they forget the message they're trying to do. So even with me, if you listen to this podcast, probably I said some filler words as well, and I give myself grace, but I'm aware of it and I'm working on it slowly. So being able to balance that, where you don't let it sabotage you, where you say like, and now you're forgetting your thought because you're being hard on yourself.
That's about it. You stress yourself out.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Awesome. Well, this has been great. I'm not going to lie. I really love the Let's Coach series that we are adding to the Rise Up For You podcast. I think it's great. It's authentic. Again, Nagham and I, we don't know what questions. I literally just opened the app.
Yeah.
So it felt really insightful, even for me to listen to you, the coach. It's also really great feedback for everyone. So Nagham, thanks for joining us. She will be back again. We're going to be doing this every single Friday. We'll have a new coach on. We'll have Nagham back. Our coaches will come back. But any last things that you want to say, Nagham, before we wrap up today's episode?
No, this is fun. I need to jump on every Friday now. This was fun. Sending your questions, and it's always learning. Even being here, listening to you, Netta, and listening to the questions, there's always learnings from that.
Absolutely. And just as Nagham said, if you have a question that you want to be coached through, go ahead, just drop it in the chat. Whether, again, you're listening to YouTube, you could even head over to Instagram and you can send us a private message and say, hey, I want to get coached on this. And then we will bring it here to the Let's Coach episode. If you don't want us to say your name, if you don't want us to say where you're from, that's totally fine. It could be anonymous, but we're going to be having these every single Friday. So thank you again for joining us for the Rise Up For You podcast, the Let's Coach new series, which I love. I'm so happy we're doing this. And don't forget that we have a ton of resources to support you and your team. So whether you're an individual looking to up-level these skills, your soft skills, these power skills, I call them, or you're a team leader, an organization that's helping your team boost their performance, their leadership and communication, we have something for everyone here. So head over to riseupforyou.com, Subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Grab some of our free resources. And thank you for joining our community. All right, everyone. We'll see you next time. Thank you. Thank you, Nagham.
Of course.